What's up? I'm here with an album review. This one came out today, November 25th, through Century Media Records. That is Deicide's In the Minds of Evil. This is a follow-up to 2011's To Hell with God. And if you're not familiar with Deicide, they are a death metal band, a pioneer of death metal. You know, one of the earlier ones with their debut in 1990, I believe it was, and in many classic albums and albums that I personally have really enjoyed along the way, such as their debut, Legion. Once Upon the Cross is my favorite Deicide album that they've put out. Their most recent, To Hell with God, is very good, and I really also enjoy the album, A Stench of Redemption. And Deicide's just, they're a classic death metal band. To me, if you're a fan of death metal, you should know Deicide and you should enjoy Deicide. They kind of, in ways, embody everything that death metal is. Something that's very chunky with lots of riffage, some very great drumming, some very brutal vocals, some very evil song content. And I mean, if you are expecting Deicide to reinvent themselves on this album, you're just fooling yourself, because they have not. This is classic Deicide sound. This is classic Deicide style, and I personally enjoyed this album all the way through. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say it's death metal album of the year, or it's Deicide's best album of their career or something, but it's definitely an enjoyable listen in my mind. It starts off with the title track, In the Minds of Evil, that they released previously. I really enjoy that song. I thought it was really good, and it's one of the stronger ones on the album, in my opinion. I really like the riff in the beginning. It's very catchy, and overall, it's a very solid song. I mean, it's a standout track in my mind. And then, the album keeps going. Thou Be Gone is a great one. Beyond Salvation, Between the Flesh and the Void is a very great song. And Trample the Cross, Kill the Light of Christ. Just a lot of very good songs. I like the riffing on here. It's old school, but Deicide's an old school band, of course it's going to be like that. It's how Deicide has always been, with some very crunchy, dark, and heavy as fuck riffs. And some of them just make you just bang your head, such as, I believe, Trample the Cross and Fall into Silence. Just they really stuck out to me as having some very crunchy riffs. Not really, extremely fast, blast beat the fuck out of everything, but just some very heavy riffs. That's all I'm gonna say. And the riffs they're just solid all around. And that's kind of how I feel about this album as a whole. It's a solid album, and it's good, but it's not great in my mind. It feels like it's a little bit lacking of something. And there's one thing that somewhat bothers me. It's just a little bit, it's just a small thing that, others, some of you might not mind, but I kind of mind it, is that some of these vocal patterns and just a couple of moments on here make me think, I feel like they kind of wrote something extremely similar to this before. It's Deicide. It's how they've always been, but it's a little bit too similar at times. Some of the vocal patterns I'm just like, wow, I feel like I've heard the same rhythm on their last album or something like that. That's the only thing that I really feel is bad about this album. And it's not all the time. I'm not saying not every song's original or anything. It's just a couple moments just reminded me of past Deicide works. The lyrical content, Deicide is very satanic, anti-religion and Christianity and all that stuff, and believe what you want. But they they really stick with that on here. I mean, it wouldn't be a Deicide album without that lyrical content, right? So it's definitely here. I mean, just look at some of the songs, you know, Kill the Light of Christ, you know, it's very satanic, very controversial, and all that stuff. Glenn Benton is a beast on this album. He's just a vocal monster when it comes to death metal. And he sounds just like he always has, just, you know, just as good as ever in my mind. Yeah, say what you want about him. I've heard a lot of stories saying he's a dickhead, and you know the whole controversy that they just recently had with Broken Hope and all that stuff. But you know his vocals are just brutal as shit, and they just really, really slay everything in its path. And that's, you know, something this album really does. It just slays everything. It's just solid all around. From the guitar work, I enjoyed the soloing on here. It didn't really blow my mind, but I felt it worked for what it was. So the guitar work was great. The drumming is great as well. And Glenn Benton is a beast. And so very, very solid. Yeah, I can't English today. It's a very solid songwriting on here. Overall, just a solid album, a worthy purchase, a worthy addition to your Deicide and death metal collection. So yeah, I'm going to give this album an 8 out of 10. Yeah, support metal, keep it fucking brutal, and I'll see you around. Oh boy.